All right. Well, I ora nei mai Eva, kia ora, and hello everybody and welcome. Welcome to the August webinar for Pacific Storytelling. My name is Renata West and I am a New Zealand Māori who lives in Los Angeles, California. I pay tribute to the local people of the land where I am currently, to the Tongva people. And also I pay tribute to my ancestors back home in Aotearoa, New Zealand. The subject for today is the cultures of Tahiti and being embraced by mana. And mana is something which connects all of the Pacific. It is something that is intangible, but yet we feel it. And it is something that a lot of people, unfortunately, would be familiar with because of movies like Moana and all of those sorts of things. But I'm joined today by two wonderful panelists. And I've had to write down their achievements so I don't miss it out. But I want to introduce my friend Merehani Parker. Merehani and I have known each other for a very, very long time. I think originally we met at ITB in Berlin. And the Polynesian kids always seem to gravitate towards each other. And then, you know, over the years, we've met at Virtuoso Travel Week in Las Vegas, the largest luxury travel show in the world. And the great thing about travel and tourism is that you always pop up and see your friends all around the world. So Merehani is the founder and director of Tahiti Islands Travel. Merehani is, Tahiti Islands Travel is a DMC company, but they've also been doing some work recently which really caught my eye, which was dedicated newsletters and content to telling the stories of the local people and sharing the local wisdom with the travelers as well. So welcome, Merehani.
Thank you, Ren. Just a little correction. I'm not quite the founder of Tahiti Islands Travel, but I'm just taking care of it right now. And as Ren said, it's, well, we've known each other for a long time. And I believe that as Polynesians and as people in general, we're connected by our energy. And I'm very happy that, thank you, Ren, for inviting me today. And as Ren said, also, it's very important for me as a Tahitian born and raised girl that we promote more than just overwater bungalows or the Blue Lagoon of Bora Bora, because definitely Polynesia, the islands of Tahiti have much, much more to offer. The culture, the history, our heritage. And recently I was talking to a friend and we were talking about COVID and all its effects on our economy. And he said, imagine if Tahiti was not territory, how would you have managed? And I said, you know, I don't know how we would have managed, but I'm sure we would have managed in some ways because Polynesians are not dumber than anybody else. I would want to say that we knew that the earth was not flat, and we sailed on our canoes and we braved the winds and the ocean, and we have discovered all of those beautiful islands of Polynesia. So I'm sure we would have managed because we have wisdom that was eventually shared with the world by the Westerners in Europe, for example. But we have wisdom that I believe ought to be shared, and we're proud to, and I'm very happy that I'm able to share some of that wisdom through our newsletters. Thank you, Ren.
Thank you so much. It's great to have you with us today. And also joining us, we have Tahiarii Pariente, who has a very long and distinguished resume. Tahiarii is a cultural guide. He's an international speaker, specializing in the study of Polynesian heritage and celestial navigation. He also navigated from New Zealand to Rarotonga in the Cook Islands and back, using only traditional wayfaring techniques. a journey which took over 3,300 nautical miles. Tahiarii holds a degree in science from the Université de la Polynésie Française, excuse my French, and a BA in commerce from Bond University in Australia. So thank you for joining us, Tahiarii.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be with you.
It's 9 a.m. in the islands of Tahiti, and remembering everybody in North America that sometimes the internet can get patchy down there. So if it drops out, we are recording, and the recording will come up fine as well. But I guess one thing to get us started is just a question to both of you: is being here in North America, what is the number one thing you think that visitors should be aware of when traveling to Tahiti?
Tahiarii, you want to start or?
Yeah, however, if you want.
Okay, go.
I believe there is this trend that is coming now in the world, just like you said before, and the tourism has changed. So I think the most important thing people start to get it automatically is that it's not just a place, it's a land with a history and people who are the result of this history. I like to say that on one hand you have nature, on the other hand you have the people, and the interaction between the two makes a culture. And today I think that our culture has exported itself a lot in the world in the past century. I'm thinking of surfing, which is 100% Polynesian made. Now it's a whole lifestyle. Tattoo are everywhere. On TV, you can see every sportsman get Polynesian tattoo. The hula and the Tahitian dancing, everything. So we're already present outside. And when people come here, I think they need to be aware that they're going to meet the real people who actually are the result of that culture, and that they are going to experience something else than just a cocktail on the beach and a fancy resort. That we have. We have very beautiful resorts, and we have very tasty cocktails, but that you can find anywhere. And that's a little on the top of it. But the root of the experience will be with the people and with sharing their everyday lifestyle, which is a result of this 3,000 continuing development of an oral culture, seafaring from Samoa and Tonga into the whole big Pacific, all the way to North and South America.
I would agree very much with Tahiarii. I think the people is really the wealth of our destination. I would want to say that travelers should not, when they come to Tahiti, they should not be expecting to have everything they have at home. Because if they want to have everything they have at home, then I'm sorry, we might not be able to meet their expectations. However, and they might probably be better off staying at home. But when you come to Tahiti, you come in contact with a culture which starts already when they board Air Tahiti or when they arrive in Tahiti, because there's a band welcoming our visitors at the entrance of the building for immigration. And then we work very hard to collect flowers, to make those leis, to welcome our visitors. And that's already one part of the culture. But then I want to say also that Polynesians are very authentic. We're not driven by tips. We're not driven by money. We're driven by our heart. So when people like you, you will feel it. And when they don't like you, you will feel it also. But what I'm trying to say is, as long as you are respectful of the people, as long as you you understand who we are, and where you are, I think things will be very, very fine. I think also that Polynesians are loving people already from the start, and you have no idea what people can do for you. I've seen hotel staff crying on the dock when guests from the hotels were leaving, and I think it's something that cannot be taken away from our destination. Some years ago, Tahiti tourism was called actually Lopati, and they have conducted a survey about what people really liked about the destination. Obviously, they were talking about the sceneries, they were talking about the beaches, but the number one feature that came out of the experience of the visitors that were surveyed was the people. So yes, I can only agree with what Tahiarii said.
I agree. I agree. It's the same in New Zealand. I've worked for Tourism New Zealand, and I've also worked for operators in New Zealand. And people generally they come for the scenery, but the thing that they remember the most is the people. And you know, if you can go anywhere in the world and find beautiful places, but you won't find the beautiful people of Polynesia. And that's what I think makes our part of the world so unique, and that's you know, why we are so welcoming. It's interesting for me is when we talk about cultural tourism, people tend to sort of clam up a little bit. They get a little bit nervous when they're talking about interacting with different people. And I think one of the great things about travel and tourism and about what we're doing here right now is that we're opening up a conversation so that when people arrive in destination, it's not so foreign, that they can understand a little bit about where you come from and have a much more fulfilling experience when they're down there as well. So that's one thing that I think is the beautiful thing about travel and tourism, and having that conversation.
Ren, if I can say something about culture and people, Tahiti Islands Travel is a small inbound operator, and what we really want to do is target the experience. So of course, we can offer a shark and ray experience on the lagoon in Bora Bora, but what we really want, and that's really how we even connected with Tahiarii, is really to offer a first-hand experience, not only with the locals, not only with the people, but also how we live and our heritage. We're working at finding those locals who are willing and ready to share their lifestyle. And it's really also what our clientele is looking for. We had families staying 10 days at the Four Seasons. And at the end of their stay, their agent called me and said, look, Mary, the family would like to spend their last meal with a local family in Tahiti. We are very welcoming, but at the same time, we're a bit shy. So it's not always easy to get anyone coming to someone's home. But eventually we did it. And so we had very simple food, and those people are very, very, very wealthy. They're from Australia, but they have part of their fortune in Sweden. But then anyways, we spent time with their children, with our children. They played piano, and we took them back to the airport. And when they went home, before they left, the wife looked at me and she said, Merehani, this is the best moment of our trip in French Polynesia. They had spent 10 days at the Four Seasons in the most luxurious unit, and yet the highlight of their stay was to be with us. So we're working at developing this kind of experiences, because even the affluent traveler is looking for more authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, Tahiarii, if I can turn to you for a second, as we've talking about travel and tourism, and last month we talked about the navigation of the Māori to Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I took our participants through the Cook Islands and also to Tahiti. Is it fair to say that maybe we were tourists in our own right back in the day?
Well, how it worked is Raiatea, here where I'm speaking from, not Tahiti. Now, Tahiti became the name for all the islands, like Hawaii is an archipelago. So you have Maui and Kauai, but when people say Hawaii, it's all the islands. So here, Tahiti and the islands, I remind that it's 118 islands that are under that name, 5 archipelagos with some real customized experience that you can have a differentiation between Marquises and Tuamotu and Gambier. And here where I am in Raromat A, the specific island where I'm speaking from is Raiatea. And as I was mentioning, I'm 100 yards from the original family Mare of Tupaya. And he was the Hau'anui of that place, which means the high priest in the late 1700. And that's just after a battle that he met James Cook in Tahiti. And he navigated James Cook to New Zealand, Aotearoa, recreating the route of his ancestors and sharing with those Pakeha the knowledge that he has inherited from his forefathers. And there has been a long history of navigation between New Zealand and here. So of course, I guess for me, specifically speaking just for me, when I receive Maoris, it's a bit different than tourists. It's more like family. And when I host Hawaiians and Cook Islanders, that's what I call cultural tourism, because it's not, cultural tourism is not for me just tourists that want to see the culture, because for me, every tourist will be embedded in the culture because we live like that every day. I always say we don't put out a show for you. And that's why I believe that those customers, after they did the 4 seasons and stuff, they want to be with the people. I had, just to give you one of my experience, I was at the Brando, and I had this very wealthy client stay 10 days with his son. So the guy, he'd done everything, okay? He did all the massage, he ate everything he could at the restaurant, he drank all the liquors, and he asked me for a private tour. And I said, okay, so what do you want to do? Because he did the bird tour, the reef tour, the whatever tour. And he said, take me where you go on your day off. I'm like, okay, all right. So here I am doing what I do for my own pleasure. And I always say, that's why we have guests. We do what we do if you are here, and if you're not here, we do the same. So you accompany us in our everyday experience, and that's what they love, because then you will, it's not a program, it's not like we wake up, because of course you wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to do this, but then it's raining, so you're going to do something else, or all of a sudden you wanted to do something, but then it's bright and shiny, the sun is out, so you're going to go up in the valley, grab some flowers or grab some stuff so you can dry out, because maybe tomorrow it's going to rain, so you're going to get some bamboos, or you're going to start weaving stuff because tomorrow we're going to go and collect some fruits or whatever. And it's just this dynamic that we have of everyday life, that things change, that I think people want to experience, because it's a surprise. Every day is a little surprise.
And that's the most authentic type of cultural activity, I think, is just learning how another people live their life. Quite often we get caught up in the show, the dinner and a show. And in New Zealand, the same thing. We have the haka and concerts, and with the hangi meal. And that's plays an important role. It helps share our stories. Remember, we're an oral culture. We didn't have a written language. Our stories and our history is preserved in those songs and in those dances. But you can become a bit of a commodity sometimes. And that's why we have to encourage people to just go a little bit deeper and to, as you say, just live a day in my life. So speaking of dance and of the resurgence of dance, the Heva and the Tahitian dances are a really important part of the culture there. For us in Aotearoa, New Zealand, the haka is your war dance. You have the swinging of the poi by the woman, which is kind of modern as well, because originally the poi was used by the men to supple the wrist to prepare themselves for war. But you know, cultures change and develop and grow and adapt with the times. Is there any interesting story around the performing arts with the Tahitian example? Do the Tahitian
Well,
song and dance tell stories as well?
it did evolve a lot, right? So of course, what you see today at the Heiva is driven by the contest. So everybody, there is a jury, and then you need to have this, the instrumental, and then you have the apariman, the otia, and the this and the that. So it follows a certain program. But in the origin, it was very more primitive, and of course, everything had a purpose. And as you say, because the culture was oral, how did we transmit knowledge and information? Well, it was through storytelling. And storytelling is easier to remember when it's got a melody. And so it's about a song, and it's about a dance. It's about aparima, which is tell a story with your hands. And so that's how you can captivate, firstly, the young ones or the public. So you can transmit a story in which you're going to put words that are of importance, the name of places, the name of the captain of the canoe, and the time. So there was so many generations ago when Maui captured the sun, and then he fitted the hair of his sister, and then you put music on it, and then you have movements that will make it pa'a into the head of the people, so they remember it. And I think that's how it started, very simple with very basic instruments. The pahu, just the skin on a piece of wood, and the to'ere is mainly drumming, singing, and the vivo, the flute. So it creates an ambiance in which you can storytell, and by the hands you captivate the audience into a story. Then little by little it became something they can do as a group, but usually you have one guy who's telling the story, and then the group is mimicking the elements and the ambiance of the story, and then it became one dance. Okay, and then you had different types of dance. So you had some very active speed dance, you have some low dance, and you have some himine tarava, where it's like more wailing and it's more sad kind of style. And so you have maybe 4 or 5 big categories of dancing like that. And it evolved into contest of how I'm going to tell the story. There is a lot of pride inside as well. So of course you're going to have costumes, beautiful people, boys and girls. The drumming is going to be loud and crystal. And that's how it became such a contest. Then merged with the French National Festival in July, became the Heiva, and became the most popular rendezvous of the year for the cultural purpose.
I will say to both of you that coming from Aotearoa, New Zealand, we're quite scary, and it's always about, you know, the haka. And I think we look very jealously at you and how beautiful and how romantic, you know, your movements are. I think we become very, very jealous of how sexy it is, whereas we're poking our tongues out.
It's hard work to practice for those Heva. I just want to say that when I was growing up, well, I was born and raised here, but I was growing up, it was never called the Heva. Heva came, the word, the name Heva came way later. Today, as well, when the missionaries came, they forbade locals to dance and to even sing because it was it was not very nice. They found it too very sexually promoting, I would say. And so the missionaries have banned dancing and singing. And then in 81, then we started to have again a celebration in July, as Tahiarii said, also to celebrate Bastille Day. But then when I was growing up, all of this was called the Tahiarii. So for us, it was not only Bastille Day, it was the dance, it was also we had fairs and things like that. And then in 1956, a woman named Madeleine Moa decided that in Ture, she was going to have the dancers come back on stage. So all of the missionary clothes, all the missionary dresses, she ditched them, and she came on stage with the actual costumes that we see. And then I can't remember when it became the Heiva. I think it was probably in the 80s, 85 or something like that. And then we started to talk about the Heiva. But as I was growing up, it was really the Ture. And to answer your question, yes, it was a very important part for us because, as Tahiarii said, it was time for celebration, for dances. And it was not only dances, but it's also canoe races. It's the time for all of those Tahitian local sports to be seen again and to be practiced again.
Mm-hmm. They always look very, very beautiful, your performers up on stage. And one thing that always stands out to me is the flowers and the tiare in the hair. For me, we have in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we place a lot of importance on feathers. We put feathers in our hair. And there's a story about when Kupe, who was one of the first ever navigators who found Aotearoa, New Zealand, and when they came up to the shores of the country, we have a big tree which has beautiful red flowers, the Puhutakawa. And the people on the waka or the canoe, they threw their feathers into the ocean because they thought, look, these trees just full of this beautiful flower. And the problem was that this flower just falls apart the moment you pick it. And so I think that's the closest thing that we have to a connection with the tiare. And I'm really interested to learn a little bit more about the importance of the tiare in the culture.
Oh, Tahiarii?
Yeah, I think one of the most important fundamentals of the culture pre-missionaries is seduction. Okay, this whole community and people have a very high standard of beauty and adornment, perfumes and scents, aromas, and the beauty of anything. I mean, the fruits, for example, when we are kids, we go pick up fruits. Mangoes right now are starting to bloom. And you always say, okay, you prepare, you wash them, you dry them, beautiful. And then you take them to give them. Because they say, oh, take this pack and bring it to auntie or whoever. And you're like, wow, it's the most beautiful mangoes for the others. And then you get all the crappy ones, right? Yeah, because that's prestige. You always want to show the most beautiful profile, the most beautiful thing. You always smell good. And I think if you go to Marquesas, they still uphold this tradition of the kumuhei, which is made out of a combination of around 10 different flowers mixed with the pineapple and then sandalwood and mint and all of that, because it creates this fragrance. And so there is beauty of the eye, the smell, the feel to, the tapa cloth, the way the hair, the oil, the Polynesian culture is very tactile, and that's a thing. For example, for our friends who are visiting us, do not be afraid. People are going to touch you. I mean, now it's COVID, but naturally people will kiss you, people will touch you, people will, when they talk to you, they pat you on the shoulder and they captivate your attention, and people sometimes get thrown off, especially Asian market. or certain other places, like, oh, well, those people is always like in my face kind of thing. You know, it's because people are very enthusiastic and they're very proud and they want to show you what's beautiful. They want to show you their gardens. They want to show you their home. They want to show you their children, their animals. Everything got to be nice and beautiful. And so the flowers, it's also a way to show, hey, look what I get in my garden. I get this, I get that. I can make this whole lake. Where do you get that? In my garden. I grow them. You want some? I trade you. I trade you the red croton for some grid outie. And I do that every day with my cousin. You know, yesterday she gave me a plant. Then she come, I give her a seed. Every time you find something beautiful, you exchange it and you want to show. So I guess the Tahiarii today is a reminiscence of this heritage of you get prestige by showing what you have beautiful in your surrounding.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's such a beautiful history. I think it's so beautiful. And you mentioned the Marquesas. And, you know, a lot of people don't understand how varied the many islands are of Tahiti. And there are, I think there's about 5 different languages that are spoken. Is that right?
Yeah, dialects, yeah.
Different
Pretty
dialects?
much. There's a few more, but
I think you're on mute, Merehani.
you're on mute.
Yeah, you know, I was saying, yeah, a bit more than 5 because, like, for example, my grandmother's from the Tuamotu, so they speak Tahitian, but they also speak Pamutu, and I think from one place to another, it can vary a little bit. And same further south in the Australs, the way someone in the Aivava speaks is different from the way the Rurutu speaks. So a bit more than 5.
Wow. And the Marquesas is an example of has always fascinated me because I think they're the most isolated community in the world. They're the furthest away from anything in the Marquesas. But yet they have very similar traditions to the Maori in New Zealand. And I look at them and I feel like I'm looking at my relations, you know, and the tattooing and all of that. It's an incredible how people who are so isolated in a geographic sense actually are very, very connected to the rest of the world in terms of the culture and the influences.
Well, there's a funny way that how history worked out. And sure enough, Marquesas stayed a bit remote. So I guess maybe not staying as fast as Tahiti and the rest. But it's also true with New Zealand. So why I believe Maoris and Marquesian seem to be more relative because they lost a bit less. If I may explain the evolution that was really fast here in the Society Island with the missionaries. From my understanding, and that's what I teach, the Maoris never accepted the gospel. So they stayed with their old gods, they stayed with their old rituals and old habits. The Marquesians did the same in a different way. They became Catholic, but as it happens sometime in history, a few individuals, like Monseigneur Lecléache, the cardinal, fell in love with the culture. And in some very exceptional cases, religion becomes the word of the culture. And here it happened for the language in Tahiti. So if you want to find the real Tahitian roots of the language, you go to the Protestant church because they kept it alive. And in Marquesas, funnily enough, what kept the culture alive is a lot of work that was done from some Catholic priests in accordance with the society that was there. Now, also never forget that there has been a drastic drop in demographic. So an island like Tahiti will have probably counted between 100 and 200,000 people by the time James Cook met those guys. The Marquesas had probably 50,000 people. An island like Pariente maybe 100,000. Today, here we are 10,000, right? Marquesas altogether is only maybe a tenth of what it had been. So they had to react to that in a way or another. And some ran into the modernism and into the new ways held by decision, like Pomare II decided to convert and decided to destroy all the mare, etc. Not in Marquesas. In Marquesas, they became Christian, Catholic. But then the guy who was in charge, they kept alive the language, they kept the mare, they kept the pai, on the way they constructed the house. And for any reason, they stayed really close to their original core beliefs. And the Maoris, say the haka, for example. The haka was everywhere. The haka is a very traditional Polynesian dance. And I am super proud of the Marquesans and the Maoris because they kept it. We lost it. The hongi is the proper way we greet people. It's always been like that, but we lost it. And here, because also we are a bit French, the French style is a bit different. And we acquired one dramatic thing here is to be shy. And a lot of our people are shy now. So they're shy to speak their language. They're shy to hongi. They're shy to do the haka. So all of these things we kind of lost, but hopefully enough, it's coming back by the Maoris, by the Marquesans. And now we interpenetrate our culture, which is really funny because we witnessing a fusion between Hawaiian, Maori, Tahitian, Rarotongan, Marquesian. And see, for example, you say lei, we say hey, but we say lei because everybody understands lei, because everybody has the Hawaiian thing. The Hawaiian is an ambassador of the Polynesian culture in the world. So the surf is known by the Hawaiians, but it's born here. But the Hawaiians know that. And there's this beautiful relationship between us all, meaning that I'm a big fan of the All Blacks because the All Black is my ambassador, you know? And I was there. I'm not in big rugby. I don't do rugby because my mother gave me a nice face. I didn't want to break it for her, you know. She suffered for it. But I'm super fan of anything that is Polynesian, wherever it comes from, because it contributes to our existence as a people in this little tiny planet. We represent, if you look at the globe, we represent a fourth of this planet. We're only maybe 2.5 million Polynesian people on Earth. But look at how influential we are. I mean, all the multi-hulls that sail around the world are a Polynesian heritage. All the surfing community is a Polynesian heritage.
The All Blacks, they're like ambassadors for our culture, you know, and it's great. It's great. You can see it on TV and it's real. And, you know, everyone watching this, I encourage you to look up a All Blacks match as well. It's always just fascinating to see the first few minutes when they perform the haka before they start the match. You get tingles up your spine, and it's a very powerful symbol. Very powerful symbol. I know Merehani likes the All Blacks. I've seen it on her Facebook.
Ren,
Oops.
Oh, I think you might be frozen.
She's gonna come back.
It's okay.
Yes.
While we wait for Merehani to unfreeze, we talked a little bit about the connection with Aotearoa New Zealand and how there's all these similarities. The Māori people say that we originally came through Tahiti and the Cook Islands, but one part of the puzzle that's missing for me is do the Tahitians know where you came from? You're back, Merehani.
yeah, I'm back. I don't know what happened.
No, you just froze.
I froze internet.
But you wanted to say something just before?
Yeah, I wanted to say something quickly about the Marquesas. yeah, for today we are, I mean, the Marquesas are remote, if we consider the Western location and everything, but if we were talking about Polynesians only, they were not so remote, because a lot of the migrations, or maybe not migrations, but a lot of voyages started in the Marquesas and went to the other islands, of Polynesia. And there's one thing that I really wanted to share to say, and I really truly share what Tahiarii said, is that Polynesia is a nation. Polynesians are people, and we share the same heart, we share the same culture, we share the same love for each other. And very much as you talk about the All Blacks, I remember when there was the final, it was the ABs against France, and I was in Miami. I was attending a trade show with Maison de la France back then, and I was the only one sitting at the front of the room with my little kiwi, and I would be cheering for the ABs, and then everybody was looking at me and they were like, "What? You're from Tahiti and you cheer for the ABs?" And I said, "You know what? Before I answer that." And that's who I stand for. I stand for the ABs, not because they're from New Zealand, but because they're Polynesians, and that's what I am. And it makes me even more grateful for this opportunity that we have today to talk about us. I'm grateful for you who created Pacific Telling Storytelling, because yes, we have something to say. And as Tahiarii said, even if we're very, very small portion of the world population, but we have a lot to say and we have a lot of wisdom. Once again, like I said at the beginning, when all of those great philosophers in Greece or in Italy, I don't know where, they were debating whether the earth was flat, but we knew it wasn't. And we were not afraid. And like I said, we braved the elements of nature, the ocean and the wind and the currents. And we went out and we started to find all of those islands that we call today Polynesia. And yeah, thank you for that. And I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity.
Oh, of course. And the Pacific as an ocean it takes up a third of the world's surface. It's such a huge thing. And yet there's so many islands dispersed in there. If you look at a map today, it just looks like blue. But what we don't realize is that we would hop from island to island to island, and you share those same cultures and that similarity, and that still continues to this day as well. So I agree with you, Merehani. That's very beautiful.
Yes, so Ren, if I come back on what you were asking and bouncing on what just Merehani said, I think it's very important, yes, for our guests to, often I ask them, have you ever been to Polynesia? And they go, no. I said, you went to Hawaii? Yes, but you went to Polynesia. And because, of course, we got the name French Polynesia. So, and here also people make the mistake of saying, oh, we're the Polynesians. But hey, Polynesia is very large. And now the scientific community, just lately, we had an article, I was speaking with a friend of mine who's a history teacher. It is accepted now that we have ties with the tribes from America, genetically speaking. So our Austronesian language connects all the way to Madagascar by the coast of Africa. And then our genetics connects all the way to South America, Chile, and to North America by the Queen Charlotte's Island. The Aida tribe is the only tribe that makes totem poles, just like we do, has the same chest checker tattoo on the chest. And we have similar words that you can find all the way of the Pacific coast of America. We know for a fact, after sailing Hokulia in 2000 to the South Archipelago of Japan, in Ishigaki and stuff, that those people who are the Okinawan people are not Japanese, they are Polynesian people. Southeast Asia, Taiwan. So I mean, yes, you guys came from Raiatea, the guys from Raiatea came from Samoa and Tonga. That's 3,000 years ago. 3,000 years ago. The Polynesians already were people already cooked their food in this umu or the hangi or the hima, already ate taro and brought back the sweet potato from America. I mean, I always explain to my guests why we're not so present and why our archaeology is not so rich. Well, I've worked in artifacts department in Cambridge, in Oxford, in the British Museum. We have connection at the Met, in Te Papa. And I tell you what, in the museum, anywhere in the world, the budget is 50% Egyptology. Then you have ancient Greece, then Rome, then you have Africa, Ethiopia, and then you have Japan, Korea, and so forth, until you hit 0.01% of the budget is allocated to the Pacific. And then it's Papua New Guinea and Taiwan. And then what do we know of the Polynesian? Not so much, because it takes generation of young people to spend a lifetime searching on one topic. It's such a complex history. We are such a complex culture today. People don't understand. How did we receive so much heritage without writing it after 3,000 years? How do we know?
Sorry.
Yes.
I saw an article in the BBC maybe last month that said that people in the Marquesas had DNA evidence that connected them to the Pacific coast of North America. And I thought to myself, it's taken 3,000 years for science to catch up to the knowledge that we've had all for many, many generations.
And I will tell you this, Renata, all of that was done through storytelling. That is why I teach, that's my thing. And I always get into a fight with the French people because they always want me to write stuff. They always want me to give them report. And everybody wants me to write the booklets. And I say, no, I'm not teaching an oral history through a book and through writing. You know why? Because then my writing is going to be used and it's going to be misleading. It's not, because I might tell you something today at this moment, and it might change in 10 years. The world might change in there. Look at us today. We're talking about this and tourism. Last year, you will ask this question, nobody would say, no, we're not going to do. And then the COVID hit, and then everybody say, okay, we change. All strategy change. All the things we say we're not going to do, we're going to do it. And that's the beauty of being oral and dynamic. And our people, I share with you a little story. I had at the Brando, Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio as a client. Super top guy. I like the guy. He's really neat. And he comes in, he bursts into my office one day and he's like, look, you got to look at this and the planet, the problems. And he's very involved into trying to save the people and interested in what's happening. And I go, yes, fine. And then we talk, and I said, we have been sustainable for 3,000 years. I mean, the big thing today is sustainability and how are we going to make sustainable this and so on. We have done that. I mean, it's only 150 years that we started drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, having cars, and watching Netflix, and trying to think that our want our needs. But no, guess what? We don't have so many needs. And there's one thing we know how to do as Polynesian, and I know the Maoris do it, I know the Hawaiians do it, is how to be happy with less. It's a real skill. It's like, I mean, we have this, and we'll tell the people down the road, come to my house, come. Because we are an inclusive culture. The way we work is you can become Polynesian. You can be born in Madrid from German parents, and eventually if you surf and you get tattooed and you adopt this kind of lifestyle and you become loving and sharing and you embrace what we uphold as fundamentals of our culture, guess what? You may become Polynesians and you may have kids in Polynesia. They will start speaking a language. They're little blondies they will become Polynesians. And that not happen in Japanese culture. You're born Gaijin, you always stay Gaijin, you know. So that's a big difference also. And be prepared, my friends, when you come here, be prepared to fall in love and be prepared to be stung by this syndrome of, I want to be Polynesian, because that might happen to most of you.
I think that's beautiful, and it's the same thing in Maori culture. Is, you know, we can get caught up in a Western viewpoint and ask someone, what percentage Maori or what
Yeah.
percentage Polynesian are you? And I look at them and I say, you know, it really doesn't work like that. That's not how we
No.
live our life.
No.
You know, and I used an example of, there was a Dutch priest who moved to New Zealand, and he lived in New Zealand for most of his life. He learned the language. He was very much a part of the community. And when he died, he was given a full tangi, a full ceremonial funeral, because for us, he was Maori. You know, he was part of us. He worked his life to help support our cause and our culture and our identity. So you know, we have to move away from those Western perspectives of percentages.
Yeah. And it's about how much, I mean, for me, yeah, as a native, it's how much I made my ancestors proud of what I do. So on a daily basis, I tell my students, I say, that means, okay, you say you're Polynesian, all right. But now I ask you, what did you do today that was Polynesian? Did you harvest a banana? Did you cut open a coconut? Did you milk some? Did you fish a fish? Or did you dance? Or did you sing a song? So that you woke up, you took your board shorts, you took your car, you went to town, you bought a bottle of water with money that somebody gave you, and you know, and you flip a switch on for lights. You didn't make fire. So, okay, what makes you Polynesian is too easy. It's not because you're born. It's like RE, you know. It's not because you're born son of a chief that you have what it takes to be a chief. And look, we talked about the All Blacks. Some of the All Blacks are not Maori blooded, but what they do resonate for all the Polynesian community. You know, a lot of Hawaiian surfing champions are not Hawaiian born, but they bring with them the youth, and they give them pride. And for me, that's what it's all about. Culture
Beautiful.
is something that you like to live. I like to be born Polynesian because I like to wear my pareo. I like to eat my fish raw. I like to be the way I am. And I like to share it with the people. And if they like it, I had an American client 2 days ago. He visited the house here, $1.2 million. He wants to buy it. I said, why? I've been coming here. I'm going to be retired soon. And I want to be living like you, dude, like every day. I want to see the sunset. I'll go fishing. I want to do that. Eat bananas and stuff. You know, it's not everybody. Okay. It's not everybody, but if that resonates for you, that you will find here in Polynesia.
And I think that's one thing that interacting with the culture will give people is a respect for nature, a respect for each other, and a respect for their ancestors and where they come from as well. So I think that's one of the really beautiful things about what tourism brings to your islands, and then what you can give to the world as well, in terms of ideas and different ways of thinking. So Tahiarii, you know, honestly, that's beautiful information, and I know we can talk all day about this stuff.
Yeah, that's for sure.
We're kind of coming to the end of our time, so I just want to dedicate a little bit of time to talking about some of the realities of the world that we live in today. You know, specifically, we're living through a pandemic with COVID-19. Tahiti reopened for tourism last month. And with some very strict protocols and procedures. So I just want to touch on that a little bit more. And I think, Merehani, would you have the most up-to-date information on that?
Yeah, so first of all, there are no quarantine measures anymore. What has to be done is that travelers have to be tested negative, of course, COVID-19, and the test has to be RT-PCR. Cannot be anything else. So the test is mandatory for all passengers from 6 years old and above. And it has to be taken 72 hours before they take off. So once they have this and the results are negative, so they can board. And then there's another testing, a self-test 4 days after they've arrived here in Tahiti. So there is no quarantine measures. I do want to say something though. I don't know what is people's opinion about wearing a mask or not. All I ask is that travelers respect what we do here, and we're asking our visitors to wear masks. If they like it or not, it's not an option. I believe also that as we were talking about our culture, that visiting a country is also about respecting the traditions. You were talking about respecting our ancestors, and our traditions came from them. So we respect the traditions, and we respect also the people where we go. And so I would kindly ask that we invite our travelers to wear masks. If they agree or not, or even if they don't believe that masks are going to protect us, wear it. And so they also travelers have to fill an online document on the etis.pf platform. It's like a sanitary ESTA. So they will have to have this ready before they board. Voila, and so they will be asked for their information, names, and where they'll be staying, so it'd be easy for anyone to trace the travelers. But definitely they will be tested again, like I said, an auto test while they're here 4 days after arrival.
It's about respect, isn't it? And as you say, it's about respecting where you are and the rules of where you are. And it's a very simple thing to do, putting on a mask. I will just say it's very important because our indigenous populations are very heavily impacted when it comes to the negative effects of this disease. So it's about having respect for life and respect for other people. So I echo what you say.
Thank you. And I just quickly, Tahiti was, I don't want to say COVID-free, but as you said, it's really about our indigenous population. And then it happens that in our islands, we have a lot of elderly. And we love our elderly, and we want to preserve them as much as possible. And yeah, voila, that's really what I wanted to say.
Beautiful, beautiful. Right, well, I think we've run out of time. We don't really have time for questions, but if you do have a question, type it in and I'll see if we can email back to you. But is there any last thoughts you want to share before we log off?
Okay, let's go ahead.
I'm super happy that you're doing that, and I think that this crisis, whoever knows how it came into being, it's gonna push everybody to think differently also, and it's gonna help us put in place some new ways maybe to organize ourselves, and maybe bring a bit of consciousness in our visitors about what are people, how things transmit to one another, the sharing, because it's really what you're going to get when you come here. It's not just a travel. I mean, I travel myself a lot, and I've been places where you can feel that, but do not be fooled. When you come here, you will find something that will transform you deeply. And when you go back, you will bring back not only souvenirs, but remembrance of touch and feel and smell and sensation.
I wanted to say that once again, I'm very grateful for this little webinar. Thank you, Tahiarii. Tahiarii is very hard to get a hold of, you know. It's a challenge for
Yeah.
us to reach him. And so I'm very, very happy that he was here. And actually, I was wondering, how did he manage to get him on board? Because we live in Tahiarii is in Ayatia, and it's hard for us to get a hold of him. But anyways, I'm very, very happy that you got to have Tahiarii today. And thank you, Tahiarii, for everything that you shared. I
Thank
don't know if
you,
it spoke
Merehani.
to all participants, but it definitely spoke to my heart. And Ren, thank you
Thank you.
for all that you do to preserve our heritage. Like I said, we are one people and we have one heritage. Depending on what part of the globe we're from, there is one thing that gathers us all together, and it's called the mana. And so thank you all, and I hope you have the pleasure of organizing your visitors visit to our part of the world. But anyways, thank you, thank you, thank you. Marururua.
Marurut Faririd.
Oh, well, thank you very much to the two of you. It's been so wonderful. I know we could talk for a whole nother hour. There's just so much to talk about, and we really value your time and your knowledge. And I know that the people on the call have today too. So, Maruru, kia ora, thank you. And please stay well, stay safe. And to all our audience, I encourage you to look for these people and see how you can support their businesses and everything that they do as well. So, haere rā, kia hoki mai anō, goodbye until we see you next time. Thank you very much, everybody.
Maruru.
Thank you.
Mana.
Bye-bye, Maruru.
Bye. All right.
All right. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Ren. I really, really enjoyed it. Very much. I really did. It's